Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 95. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, just about a week out from the NFL Combine. Excited for our guys to be out in Indy. I believe Omar Khan's going to speak. What is that, next Tuesday? So get to hear from him. Maybe we'll hear from Mike McCarthy as well. So this quiet period about to wrap up, move on to the next phase of the offseason. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Doing well. And I guess probably, I don't know, today, tomorrow, we should get that combine speaking schedule. And we'll see if Mike McCarthy ends up speaking and when exactly Omar Khan will speak. So, yeah, getting ready for that. And we're about a month out now from the start of the new league year and free agency. Starting to see some teams doing some restructure. Looked like the big news this morning was Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs restructuring his contract to free up a lot of cap space there. And we'll start seeing it. Wasn't it this time last year that we saw a couple of cuts by the Steelers, but they were the way out in front, very predictable type of cuts. But we obviously haven't heard anything from the Steelers in any cuts so far. So we'll keep an eye on that. We do know where one of the Steelers' former coaches is going, though.
We do, and funny enough, literally as I was saying about the combine schedule, we got word that Omar Khan will speak Tuesday and no Mike McCarthy at the combine. He will not speak then, probably speak at the owners' meetings a little while later in mid-March or so, whenever those are, I believe out in Arizona, as Mike Tomlin would do each year, but just Khan at the combine.
All right, we'll have to see if maybe there's some sort of small scrum or something with McCarthy or whatnot. If he if that comes to fruition or not. But Mike Tomlin
At the combine or at the owners' meetings?
At the combine. But Mike Tomlin,
no, he's not talking. He's not. Yeah, he's not talking at the combine.
He's not talking at all. Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
well, there's that out of the way then. So, and we now know when Omar Khan will speak as of this morning. So good. So we'll have a couple people boots on the ground there with that, as we do usually, and looking forward to tracking all the numbers with you next week.
Definitely. All right, Dave, as you mentioned, a former Steelers coach finding a new job. That is wide receivers coach Zach Azzanni, who spent 2 years in Pittsburgh. He is being hired by the Las Vegas Raiders as their new wide receivers coach, as Clint Kubiak puts together his staff out there in your neck of the woods. So as of now, only 4 Steelers coaches from the 2025 Tomlin staff have not found a job that we know of yet, and only one of those was either a coordinator or a head positional coach role, like, say, Zach Azzanni. And of course, that one exception is defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, who interviewed for the Commanders DC job, did not get it. That's the only known interview of Austin so far. So Azzanni to the Raiders, Austin still waiting.
All right, and Austin might be waiting quite a while at this point. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, he may consider a year off. I mean, could he get an assistant DB's coach job or even a secondary's coach job? Yeah. Is he going to maybe wait for something to open up? I know people will insert their jokes here about Terrell Austin. So he's, been a veteran coach. He may not mind kind of a gap here. So we'll see. Obviously, no surprise. People aren't banging down the door for him to become their DC. Washington gave him that look, and that was it there. So just notable, the other 3 coaches who do not have jobs yet were assistants. Isaac Williams, who was the assistant offensive line coach. You had Mateo Cambu, who was an offensive assistant. I need to check if he joined Arthur Smith at Ohio State. Maybe that's happened and just not been reported. And then also Jason Brooks, who was a defensive quality control coach, to our knowledge, has not been hired anywhere else. But most of the names have been hired elsewhere.
All right. Got that out of the way with the housekeeping.
One other kind of piece of procedural note here, Robert Woods, the one-time Steeler, announced his retirement yesterday, signing a 1-day contract with the LA Rams, where he won a Super Bowl, and he will wrap up a 12-year NFL career.
What was your favorite Robert Woods moment?
I'm trying to remember that it happened after
uh,
yesterday's news.
yeah, kind of will go down in history. Who was the wide receiver, the old Saints wide receiver that spent,
Lance Moore?
yeah, Lance Moore. That was the name I was trying to think of this
That's a heck of
morning
a
there.
pull by me to pull that off for just Saints
Yeah.
receiver.
Yeah, he had more receptions than Robert
Yeah.
Woods. It
Well,
not
one is enough. Yeah.
not by many. Didn't Robert Woods have a catch or something or two in the preseason or something like that? But not much more than that. And I forget if they gave him. It seemed like they gave him a signing bonus that they ended up wasting. I guess related to that. But what was it? Something like 1.5 million, or I can't
Looks like a
remember.
$2 million deal
Okay.
that he got.
All right. Yeah, that one certainly didn't come to fruition there. But yeah, long career for Robert Woods there. So wish him well moving forward in his post football career.
How long does a guy have to spend with a team to kind of justify the one-day contract? Is 5 years with the Rams, but also winning a ring, is that enough to warrant the one-day contract? What's kind of the line?
I don't know. I don't know if there's an official on that, but I think him being part of the organization definitely through the Super Bowl championship and all probably qualifies. I wouldn't expect any organization to go out there for away for a guy that maybe only spent 2 or 3 years with the team. But I how many was Robert with the Rams? 5?
5.
Okay. Maybe that's the cut line.
Yeah, there's no official. You can do it whenever you want, but I'm just kind of curious subjectively when teams kind of let that door open up. What's a question for Joel Corey? One we'll add it to the list. What does a one-day contract look like? There's no way it can be as lengthy as a
I
normal contract.
yeah,
It's a piece of paper ceremony. It's kind of like whenever
yeah.
you had that toy phone growing up. It's kind of like that for a contract.
Yeah, I think it's just ceremonial more than anything.
Yeah. Just to quickly revisit as well, we mentioned it during the Monday show because the news was happening as we were recording, Dave, but Miami releasing a slew of players, Bradley Chubb, former Steeler James Daniels, and of course the big name there in wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Do you have any interest in any of those Miami releases?
0, none, zilch, 0
None in
point
Hill.
z yeah, none. And I think only a handful of those became official. I don't think, we kinda wonder what's gonna happen with Chubb. Would that be a post June 1st, cut, along those lines there? And I think, the James Daniels became official. I think the other wide receiver, he
Yeah,
can
Nick Westbrook-Akine.
yeah, he became official, and I think Tyreek Hill, became official too, but I think that was had a injury designation attached to it or couldn't pass physical or something along
Mhm.
those lines there. So, but no, and I understand. Look, anytime a big name wide receiver, really with Steeler fans, anytime any notable name becomes a free agent or cut, everybody points to Steeler, that kind of thing there. Uh man, Tyreek Hill coming off of the injury that he had first and foremost, plus he's what, 32, 33, not a choir boy by any stretch of the imagination. I've just got no interest at all. And I realize he'll probably be cheap coming off of the deal and obviously having to recover from the injury and all like that. But I don't want any part of that in Pittsburgh. And obviously James Daniels, it's unfortunate kind of the way his career ended up in Pittsburgh with the injury, and he did have I think he had some reputable snaps and play with the Steelers, but he's up there in age now, and coming off of the injury that he had early last season that cost him most of last season. There, I think it's time to, if you're going to do anything and try to do the whole veteran guard thing, why not just stay with one of your own unrestricted free agents in Isaac Seumalo? But Isaac Seumalo obviously will have a higher price tag. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute as one of our topics today. But no, I'm ready to move on from James Daniels. I don't want him back. Chubb, obviously, kind of a different fit, and the Steelers got enough edge rushers there. Westbrook, Akine. Yeah, mean, I suppose if you wanted to bring him in as a camp body or something like that, on a minimum contract, but no. Short answer is no. Any and all of those Dolphins players that are getting released, I have no interest in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm with you. Basically, by and large, Tyreek Hill, I'll pass. The severe injury, he does say he intends to play in 2026, but when exactly that will be, what will be his effectiveness? You got the NFL still investigating that domestic dispute, and so just a lot of other options Pittsburgh can explore that can impact you, especially Hill if he comes to a new team, new offense, if he's limited during OTAs, trying to get on the same page as, say, Aaron Rodgers, it's just going to put you behind the eight ball. I'll pass on that. Daniels, incredibly, despite wrapping up year 8, he's only 28 years old. He came into the
Right.
league so young, but the injuries really kind of maybe accelerate that age a little bit. So I'm with you, Dave. I like Westbrook Akine. I had interest in him during last year's the 24 season deadline, and even after the season, he had worked with Arthur Smith in Tennessee. He's a big body blocker. Caught 9 touchdowns 2 years ago in that 24 season. But with this new offense being put into place, I'll pass.
Yeah, I'll pass as well too. On like I said, on all of them there. I imagine, and a lot of people saying it didn't end well with Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, but it's easy. I think they hit on this topic a little bit this morning on First Take or one of those shows this morning. What's the other one? Not First Take. Get Up.
You know.
It makes a lot. I think Tyreek Hill needs the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs need Tyreek Hill. So
Mhm.
I would not be shocked to see Tyreek Hill return to Kansas City, on a 1 or 2 year deal with very minimal money involved. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I would be absolutely shocked if it ends up being Pittsburgh that where Tyreek Hill lands.
I'm with you, Dave. What about Mike Evans? He's apparently wants to play another season, does not know for sure if that's going to happen in Tampa Bay, where he spent his whole storied career, so could be a free agent for the first time. Obviously, the age is a factor, injuries are a factor, but what are your thoughts on Mike Evans?
I mean, I think he's obviously had a long, storied, successful career, but I still think he's going to be one of, if not the top wide receiver free agent guys in the NFL this year when it comes to the wide receiver position. I'm looking right now, 33 years old. I think the Athletic, who and it's going to be part of our program today, going over kind of the contract values of their 150 top free agents for 2026. They have Mike Evans ranked 7th overall with a contract projection of 2 years, 51 million. And I mean, if I could get him for maybe half that price, yeah. But yeah, I at his age and probably only having one season left, yeah, I'll pass on that.
Yeah, that contract, if that was to be the value, is certainly really, really high. I mean, Pittsburgh could afford it. It's not that they couldn't, but are
Right.
you willing to pay into that for an older player who might be paying for some of that past production? I'm still looking for a route runner, which Evans I would not consider to be that, top end nuanced route runner, especially this stage of his career. So I'm more open to it than say a Tyreek Hill, but in all likelihood, gonna probably look elsewhere.
All right. Mike Evans is their top rated projected free agent on the athletic list this morning of 150 players. Alec Pierce is the second one. Interesting here. 4 years, $102 million projected value on him, which would put him slightly over what the 25 million per mark. We knew he helped his cause this the past couple of seasons here. He's only 26. Might the Steelers consider going down that road, or is that a little pricey?
It's pricey. The first question is, does Pierce avoid the tag? A lot of Colts fans and beat writers speculating the tag will get used to retain Pierce. The Colts definitely want to keep him. Now it's tricky because they want to keep Daniel Jones too, and if they have to use the tag on one of those guys, you imagine Jones will get it before Pierce. So we'll see, but my days, and I've been talking about Alec Pierce for a long time now, but my days of getting him kind of on the cheap in a trade, those are long gone. So again, Pittsburgh could afford it. I don't have in principle, you're paying a lot of money to receivers, but I don't see that that's inherently bad or wrong or impossible to do. But such a competition for Pierce, it just seems unlikely to occur.
All right. Just to recap on, they have Tyreek Hill as a 1-year, $5 million contract. It'd be interesting to see how close he comes to that. I project maybe he'll get a little bit more than 5 million there.
The question is kind of
Who-
when he signs too, when he's healthy enough
yeah.
to sign, when a team feels comfortable in that. This is probably not going to happen in March 14th. It's going to probably happen,
Mhm.
I don't know, June 14th.
All right, Romeo Dubs is number 30th overall and like the, I don't know, fifth, sixth wide receiver on the athletic list. 4 years, 61 million for Romeo Dubs, and he obviously has early on in his career history with Aaron Rodgers. Good route runner overall, I think. A guy that can still get down the field as well too. Has had a couple of injuries, I think, the last couple of years, but that becomes a guy that I think is more in the Steelers ballpark. What's that, around 15? Uh, what is uh what is 4 into 61?
Just about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
15.25.
That could be, a guy that the Steelers potentially look at if indeed that's the market price on him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. More economical, still a young guy off his rookie contract, so that would certainly fit. Just to make you look some stuff up, Dave, what is the projection on Jawan Jennings and Wandell Robinson?
All right, Jawan Jennings, 3 years, 42 million.
Okay, so a little under that 15 million per, a little less than Romeo Dubs, but still a decent contract. Had Arthur Smith remained OC, that would have made a lot more sense to me. Still could make sense, and I've been a big Jawan Jennings fan too. But again, you want that route runner, you want the guy who gets open, who beats man coverage. You miss that really the last couple years, but especially last season. I don't know if Jennings completely scratches that itch.
All right, who else were you asking about?
Wandell Robinson of the Giants,
Yeah, they got 3 years, 48 million on him.
so more than Jennings. And he had a good year in a tough situation, especially once Start went down. Different type of receiver, obviously, may fit a little more what Pittsburgh is looking for, but is that a little too pricey? We can debate that until free agency opens up.
Well, and I'm going to save the Steelers on this list to have a as the next portion of the show. Debo Samuel, they've got 1 year, 12.5 million, and Christian Kirk, 3 years, 24 million.
That playoff game against Pittsburgh really helped his value out a whole lot, didn't it? Made a bunch of
Mhm.
money in that game because he did not have a prolific regular season. Caught just 28 passes, just one touchdown, but went off in the postseason. So I know Pittsburgh had interest before, whenever he was in Jacksonville, before he broke his collarbone. New regime, or at least a partial regime coming in. Going to be 30 in November. You will see. I think you start somewhere else. I think you start with Dubs. I think you start with some of those names before you move on to Christian Kirk.
If you could get Christian Kirk on a 3 year, let's say even $24 million deal with, let's say, 10 million in cash earnings with base salary and signing bonus for 2026, and nothing obviously guaranteed beyond that, maybe that might be something that they'd look at.
That's probably how his contract will be structured, but I think he at least want to explore some higher level options first and maybe
Yeah.
some longer term options.
I think of all the guys that we just went through on the list that uh, would be a fit and be realistic. I think Romeo Dubs, obviously, assuming the 4 year, 61 million, we'll see how close that actually is. I think that would be the most realistic and obtainable and be a decent fit.
He would, but Pittsburgh will not be the only team, I'm sure, in the market for his services. And yes, the Rogers connection may help, but that's a 1 year thing if it happens at all. And Dubs is going to be looking at this as a multi-year decision for his next home.
All right.
All right, Dave, do you want to stick with the free agent for Pittsburgh, or do you want to go to my mock draft?
Let's go over the list of these Steelers on the top 150 list in totality. Let me pull up that real quick. Thought I sent that to you this morning.
You did.
What did I do with it here? Hold on. Here it is. All right. We will start with their highest ranked Steeler, soon to be free agent on the Athletic Top 150, and that is Isaac Seumalo, who they have down as a contract projection of 2 years, $28 million. I think we had the conversation the other day that that doesn't sound that outlandish as far as 14 million per year. But when it comes to the Steelers, I think that's way too pricey to get a guy like Sayamalo back in the fold on.
Yeah, that sounds more in line to what I was kind of angling at in Monday's show. I know what OTC said, 7.5 million thereabouts on his projected value, which felt way too light. Maybe in true value, but just given the scarcity of offensive line, the tax we talk about when it comes to free agency, 14 million per year sounds closer to the actual figure. And again, for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that signed him 3 years, 24 million, which really was a steal of a deal whenever they signed it before the guard market got super hot, this one just feels a little too rich.
All right, I would agree there. The next one on their list at ranked number 40th overall, Calvin Austin III. They've got 3 years, 33 million.
Yeah, this one surprised me both in the ranking of 40th overall and the contract projection of 11 million per year. And if he had a really good season, then maybe if he was healthy the entire year, I kind of took issue with this. Was who wrote this? Was this Brugler? Was this somebody else?
No, that was that Popper, who
Daniel Popper.
yeah, who was for a long time he covered I think the Chargers, and
Hmm.
now he's more of a just I think broad NFL for the Athletic.
Yeah, I took some issue or some disagreement with his kind of blurb on Austin saying he is dangerous after the catch, can create on engineered touches. I never really got that feeling with Austin. I know there's certainly a great speed element to his game, but he really didn't have the quicks to change the direction, the make you miss ability that you would expect for a guy of his size. It occasionally happened. Of course, it's going to happen with any kind of compact receiver with speed like him, but in that true space, throw the swing screen, the RPO to him, let him make a man miss. That just really wasn't his game. He is a true vertical burner, a flyer, a guy who wins with pure downfield speed, and there's value in that. But for 33 million, 3 years, even on the open market, that feels pretty expensive.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd put him up in the 9 million per category.
Yeah, I think he's probably more.
Seven,
And
seven and a half.
and I know that obviously guys quote unquote get overpaid because of the value of free agents, but there's a pretty good number of receivers to look at. It's a good draft class. It's not like there's such a void of talent that your market value gets inflated to an extent. So I think, yeah, 7 to 8 is maybe the higher end of what he'll get on the market. That seems reasonable to me. But,
Yeah,
we'll see. It just takes one team.
yep, all it takes is one. All right, next on the list, ranked number 57th overall is Aaron Rodgers, contract projection, 1 year, 12.5 million. That sounds about spot on.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to really disagree with there. It's similar to the contract he signed last year, and obviously you'd have to check the structure and incentives. You would assume those things will be similar. I know in the blurb from Popper talks about how quick he was to get the ball out of his hand, finding his check down. So did not have a real positive viewpoint of Rodgers. Was he the third best quarterback on his list? Where did Rodgers slot among free agent quarterbacks? I'm sure
Um,
Willis was ahead, Daniel Jones probably ahead. Anybody else?
Daniel Jones is the top. They have him at 2 years, 88 million. Malik Willis is next, 2 years, 46 million, and Aaron Rodgers is third at 1 year, 12.5 million, and then Flacco 1 year, 6.25 million. Mitchell Trubisky 1 year, 8 million. Russell Wilson 1 year, 8.5 million, and then there's only three left after that: Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, and Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, the list really falls off after Rodgers. So again, just an example of how few options there are. Now that doesn't consider the trade candidates, Kyler Murray and Tua, and the assumed release of Kirk Cousins, which will happen at some point before the new league year opens up. But even with all that considered, the pool has not become a lot more attractive.
All right, next Steeler in the top 150 for the Athletic from Daniel Popper is Kenneth Gainwell at 100 and ranked 103 out of 150. 2 years, $10 million. That sounds pretty close to realistic there. When it comes to Kenneth Gainwell, we'll have to see what happens to guys like Brees Hall and a couple other these guys that wonder whether or not they'll hit the street or not. But That sounds about spot on for Kenneth Gainwell based on the season that he had last year. And you look at a guy like Jalen Warren. Would you re-sign Kenneth Gainwell for 2 years, $10 million, with let's say $6 million of that $10 million coming in 2026?
Yes, I would. I would definitely do that. It feels close to projection, but feels a little under. If I had to go over or under on what his actual contract will be, I think he'll get a little more than that.
All right. Let's see. Next on the list, Asante Samuel Jr. They have at 132nd overall, and this is the last one they have on the list. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, we talked about James Pierre, where he would rank in all these. He's not in their 150 overall, but Asante Samuel Jr. is. They have pegged at 1 year, $5.5 million. Does that sound right? And if a guy like Asante Samuel is worth 1 year, $5.5 million, what is James Pierre's worth?
Yeah, Pierre's not gotten a lot of love on these lists. Well, it kind of feels like he's either gets a lot of love or just gets completely
Mhm.
ignored or forgotten about. And this was a top 150, right?
Yeah, this was a top 150.
And he wasn't on there at all, which is surprising. Samuel, that sounds about right. 1 year still to build up his value. Only still played a quarter of a season in Pittsburgh. Looked fine. As Popper says, looked like his old self in terms of the ball skills. The tackling was an issue, kind of getting his legs back under him. So that seems reasonable. Maybe that $5.5 million will have some incentives in it in terms of playtime and games and all kind of health related, but that seems reasonable.
Yeah, we could probably see something along the lines of an up to with him, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that agent tweet or that Ian Rappaport tweet will have that up to language in it.
All right. Are we have we overvalued James Pierre? Are we
I
overvaluing James Pierre? Is James Pierre worth more to the Steelers than he is league wide?
probably, although with Mike Tomlin exiting and a lot of the coaching staff exiting, it maybe that value's a little bit less because they're not as tied to, McCarthy has no real ties to Pierre and his maturation and his sort of rags to riches NFL story undrafted free agent during the COVID year and now having a career season last year. I didn't feel like 2 years, 12 million was us being over our skis about Pierre and his value. So we'll see. Again, we've seen some lists that put Pierre on there and with a decent contract and some that leave him off entirely. But I think he would certainly have more value than Samuel Jr., given that Pierre was healthy, had a really good year. I know he's older, and that's going to be one factor against him and just the 1 year sample size. And can you trust him to replicate that as he gets into his 30s? But, in terms of that man cover corner with size and length and speed, Pierre has it all.
All right. When you look, we ran through the whole long list of unrestricted and restricted, and the one void in who was that? Kyle Duggar, and even the exclusive rights free agents. Are you s- is James Pierre the only notable one not in the 150 that probably should be when you look at the long list that we went through there?
Sure. I don't know who else would even be a name you could argue or fight over. Cole Holcomb? I wouldn't think so. I can't think of anybody else. I don't think Duggar's a top 150 type of a guy, so I'm okay with him being left off of that list. Those are really the names.
Yeah, I would agree there. So I do think they kind of overvalued Calvin Austin. We'll see on Sayamalu, but there's at least right now there's not a lot of interior offensive linemen. Certainly with his experience, so he might. I mean, once again we saw who was it, Dan Moore, get the type of money that he got last year. So there's going to be a buyer out there for Sayamalu, and
Sure.
it just does. At this point, it certainly does not feel like the Steelers will be re-signing him.
Yeah, it'll either be a rebuilding team looking for some sort of veteran anchor along the offensive line, much like Pittsburgh whenever they signed, say, Malu, or some contender trying to add that one piece to help you win. Now, just quickly to go back to Pierre, what do you think his ideal role in the open market for a team would be? I'm kind of thinking that third corner in or in base, he may not be starting, but whenever a team goes sub package, which they're going to be in the majority of the time anyway, he then comes in that outside corner that isn't base, maybe kicks inside of the slot. That's kind of an ideal way, I think, to get Pierre out there. A sub package guy who's playing 75% of the snaps.
Yeah, I wouldn't push back on any of that at all. I think that's ideally the way you want to use them.
But there's a question again about, can he repeat it? Was this a one-year flash in the pan? He's never been a super consistent player. Do you trust that as he gets into his, age 30 season? So there are certainly some demerits and drawbacks. But how many? Well, I don't make you do all this. How many corners were on that top 150? It's probably hard to count them all up. But
No, they actually have it nice and sortable
okay,
here. Let's see, corners. Oh boy, there's a long list of. I'll tell you this: Asante Samuel Jr. is the last ranked corner in their
okay,
150, and in total, there's. I'll read down the list real quick. Alante Taylor is the top one. Reek Woolen from the Seahawks is second. Jalen Watson from the Chiefs is third. Nashawn Wright. Next, Eric Stokes from the Raiders. Next, Jamel Dean from the Buccaneers. Josh Jobe, Monteric Brown, Roger McCreary, Kobe Durant, Cordell Flott from the Giants, Greg Newsome the second from the Jaguars, and then Asante Samuel Jr. Now, obviously, this list will grow from some cuts or whatnot prior to the middle of March.
yeah, some interesting names on there, especially. Pittsburgh does not re-sign Pierre and Samuel and wants to go externally. You got Eric Stokes, who worked with Patrick Graham with the Raiders. Who are some of the top names on that list that you mentioned, too, that were intriguing? Maybe not Taylor. That's probably going to cost a little too much. But
Yeah, what do you think about Kobe Durant?
yeah, I'd have to dig into him a little bit more. Nashawn Wright had heck of a year. Had that pick against Pittsburgh, that deep ball from Rudolph, first pass of the game, second play of the game. He had a really productive season and was really well coached by Zach Harris over there in Chicago.
Yeah, and then you got Eric Stokes from the Raiders, who obviously new defensive coordinator has familiarity with.
Yeah, like I said, Patrick Graham, with him, he was in Green Bay, but he was not drafted in the McCarthy era, for anyone asking. But former first-round pick, we'll see if Pittsburgh still loves their first-round pedigree. Again, all things that could be changing from Tomlin to McCarthy, but a former top pick.
All right. Let's see. Here's the next path I wanted to go down to. If X player hits free agency, there's no way he returns to Pittsburgh. And obviously, we're dealing with a small list of guys that really matter here. Aaron Rodgers. What is Aaron Rodgers' chances of? Do they go down significantly if he is not officially re-signed by the start of free agency?
No, I wouldn't say that because I just assume no decision has been made. And I think Pittsburgh's willing to wait because they don't feel like there's a lot of other options they can explore. So I wouldn't say that.
I would agree. Isaac Seumalo. If Isaac Seumalo hits the start of the new league year and has not been re-signed by the Steelers, what are his chances of returning?
Probably pretty low.
I would agree. Probably just more than 0%. How about Kyle Duggar?
Yeah, probably gone.
I would agree. What about Kenneth Gainwell?
That one's interesting. A real name I'm watching here. I mean, obviously, anytime a player hits the open market, their chances of return typically tends to dip. Means you couldn't get a deal done before, and generally, people know their situations before free agency begins. Be it the combine, where it's kind of the unofficial start of free agency, and then legal tampering period 2 days before, where you can really map that things out and get deals in place to be signed once the new league year begins that Wednesday at noon. So all that to say, still wouldn't close that door, but certainly would not be good for his odds.
I agree. All right. What about Kenneth Gainwell? Kenneth Gainwell hits the middle of March, start of the new league year, and is not re-signed with the Steelers. Is he gone?
Didn't you just say Gainwell, or was I responding to a different name?
Didn't I say Duggar?
You said Duggar. I thought you said Gainwell after.
Oh, okay. All right.
I might have missed it. But
all right.
either way, again, I wouldn't close that door on Gainwell, but probably the odds are not helping if he's hitting the open market, obviously.
All right. Calvin Austin III.
Yeah, if he's hitting the market, then he's probably gone.
I would agree. All right. Two more. James Pierre and Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah, again, it's just so
Seems
hard
like
to know.
James Pierre is a guy that maybe you let at least go
Mhm.
go see his market value and bring it back.
Yeah, and he may want to explore. He's never really probably been in this situation. He's been a free agent before, but not with maybe some value beyond a veteran minimum contract. He's kind of just waiting for a while. So he may want to go just test and look and see and get a feel for how other teams may view him and use him, and then maybe come back to Pittsburgh. I could see that.
All right, and probably the same with Asante Samuel Jr., right?
Yeah, I think you could say the same. He wants to see what his market is, how teams feel about him, what contractually, what do things look like? How incentive laden are these deals? Could he possibly get a 2-year deal somewhere? Wouldn't think so, but you never know. You look. So also could be in that same boat as Pierre.
All right. Anybody else you want to know about? Maybe positionally on the top 150 from the Athletic.
Top safeties out there. If Ramsey is cut and does not return, a huge hole there at free safety. No real internal replacement. So who are the top names?
All right, they got Kevin Byard. How old is Kevin Byard now? 33. When does he turn 34? They've got 2 years, $25 million. He is the top safety on their list. Cam Curl, they've got next, 4 years, $65 million. Brian Cook from the Chiefs, 3 years, $40 million. Kobe Bryant, 3 years, $30 million. And Jalen Thompson's next, and then someone that people are trying. It had Jaquan Brisker mostly been a strong type safety.
I think so out there in Chicago, but I have to. I'll pull up maybe his stats right now and see where he's been playing, because Byard was the free safety in Chicago, at least this past year, and had a big year. But he's older, and that's why his contract projection is lower.
All right. Nick Cross, Alohi Gilman, Reed Blankenship, Tony Jefferson. How old's Tony Jefferson now? 34.
Yeah.
Wow. Jalen Hawkins from the Patriots. That's a kid that made him a little bit of money this past year, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. I liked him coming out. But all those Cal DBs. Briscoe's actually had a pretty even split between free and strong safety, according to PFF's charting.
All right. And Nick Scott is their last ranked in the 150, 31 years old from the Panthers.
Gotcha. So some names out there, but some decent prices. Safety's not, obviously cheaper than corner, but still some decent contracts. It is a really strong safety class, and that could lead teams like Pittsburgh to not want to pay a bunch of money on the open market, go draft instead.
Now, if this team parts ways with Jalen Ramsey, then you could, you might see them in the market. And obviously, you got Deshaun Elliott, hopefully returning from his injury last year.
Yeah, you would imagine they're going to sign somebody. Now, would it be the top name or names on the list? It may not, but certainly they would add a veteran before. I mean, I still imagine the same principle of, a team that has a hole will kind of insulate themselves with a veteran and then maybe go draft, pretty early in the draft, obviously, would make a lot of sense. Double dip there.
All right. Any other positions, or shall we move on and talk about your new mock draft or your first mock draft?
Just out of curiosity, not really for Pittsburgh, but who are the top offensive tackles? Because so few guys get out there. It's so hard to find that name. Again, citing Dan Moore and his big contract last year. Who are the top offensive tackles?
Rasheed Walker is their top one. From
what's the contract projection on that?
4 years, $82 million.
What if he gets more? But so it's very similar to I guess Dan Moore.
Is it? Yeah. Well, we'll see who becomes available. But Jermaine Alamunor from the Giants, Braden Smith from the Colts, Elijah Wilkinson from the Falcons, our old buddy Fred Johnson from the Eagles. They've got it 3 years, $18 million, and boy, it drops off from there. Jonah Williams is on this list. 1 year next at 1 year, $7 million. Jamari Saylor from the Chargers, 2 years, $8 million. So yeah, it drops off considerably after just even like the top couple of them. In Rasheed Walker. So Walker and Alamunor probably going to be the big winners as far as tackles go.
Braden Smith too.
Yeah, Braden Smith probably too. He's still 30. They got 3 years, $53.5 million for him, and then it drops off because Elijah Wilkinson's next at 2 years, $16 million.
And you see why those tackles get paid, because that assumes those guys hit the market, don't get tagged, don't get re-signed, and I bet you one or two of those names probably will be retained, which will make the pool even more shallow. And yes, some guys get cut, but most teams aren't cutting good offensive tackles that are pretty young. So again, you see why it's so expensive to sign offensive linemen.
And just for clarification, Isaac Seumalo is their top guard.
Is he? Okay. Is he the top? He's probably what, second or third among the interior linemen? I assume Linderbaum is first and maybe somebody else second.
Let's see. Linderbaum is ranked 6 overall. There's no way Baltimore lets him get away,
I
right?
don't know. They declined the option, new coaching staff, big money. I think he's an overrated player. I mean, this may be black and gold colored glasses. I don't think he's that good.
All right. We'll see if they tag him or not. Seumalo's ranked 20th overall, so I think technically Seumalo would be the second ranked interior lineman on their
Okay.
list.
Yeah. So again, speaks to why he'll get paid, I think, handsomely come free agency. It would be funny if Pittsburgh signed Illuminor because he was the guy that had that kind of war of words with TJ Watt, or at least Watt wasn't saying much, but Illuminor was saying a whole lot
I forgot
2
about
years
that.
ago. And that'd just be funny. Obviously, he's not going to come to Pittsburgh, but just a name that reminded me of that
All right.
interaction.
All right.
All right, Dave, one other quick thing before we get to my mock draft. I have an article up on the site this morning, the most impressive stat about the Steelers' offensive line. I've been wanting to write this for a while now and finally found the time to research it all and write it up. Pittsburgh's front five, the least penalized offensive line in 2025 per handy site of NFLpenalties.com. Pittsburgh's O-line penalized just 13 times all season for 92 yards, the fewest in the NFL in both categories by a pretty wide margin. And even considering, the lack of plays that Pittsburgh had, if you do those things relatively, Pittsburgh's still number one in the NFL. So you talk about those underrated, overlooked aspects of individual play or unit play. Do you play clean? Do you play disciplined? Pittsburgh's offensive line, which is young and certainly could be prone to making mistakes in theory with a veteran quarterback with a heck of a cadence like Aaron Rodgers, really did a good job.
All right. It's a good thing too, because the way this team dealt with negativity in drives and all, it's a good thing they were mostly clean up front. Do you know who had the most penalties on the offensive line last year?
In Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm. Offensive lineman with the most penalties.
Yeah, from what I compiled, it was Zach Frazier and Andres Pete. Each had 3.
All right, and 2 of them with Frazier were offensive holding, and he had a false start in week 17. Andres Pete had 3 in total, 2 false starts and an offensive holding in his limited amount of time. Looked like Tano had 3, but one was declined. 2 offensive holding, 1 false start. Who else is on this list? Spencer Anderson had 2, 1 holding, 1 offside. Who else is on this list? Broderick Jones had 1, and that was an offensive holding. Trying to go down the list here. Dylan Cook had 1, and that was a false start. Mason McCormick had 1, and that was also a false start.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. You have an Isaac Azzanni who had 0 penalties the entire season in terms of accepted ones. And he was hurt some, he missed some time, but still remarkable. I mean, no holding calls from McCormick the entire year. 1 accepted one on Fautanu, just 2 on Frazier, kind of mauling along the interior. Only 5 or 6 false starts the entire season for a new quarterback, again, with that really heavy, deep cadence that he has. Broderick Jones, 1 holding, which surprised a lot of people. They thought he had a bunch of holding calls this year, just the 1 and no false starts. So again, I talk about Jones and his maturation, the discipline, the focus, false starts, self-enforced penalties, because holdings can be a little ticky-tack. You get a call, does the ref call it or not called, holding on every play, but false starts are pretty clear, and Jones held his water. So just from a mental standpoint, another example of why I thought Jones improved this year.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at offensive holding as a team, looks like they had 15. 1 was declined, but a lot of these on, I think, special teamers. In other words, Asante Samuel had a holding call. Jabril Peppers had a holding call. Sebastian Castro had a holding call. Ben Skoranek, was that Ben Skoranek a holding call on special teams, or was it on on offense. I don't know for sure. Trey Sermon, who's obviously a special teamer, had one. So yeah, they did a good job on the offensive line, not only with penalties but types of penalties as well too. Brandon Eccles had a holding call, and obviously he's a defensive special teams player. So yeah, that's quite a development there when it comes to the offensive line and penalties in totality.
Can you tally it up? Because I did, and it's a good point. Who had more holding calls, your defensive backs or your offensive line in terms of offensive holding calls? How many did, because Pittsburgh's, I have, in terms of accepted ones, one for Fautanu, two for Frazier, one for Jones. That's four there. I didn't have it broken down for Anderson and Pete. I think there were a couple with those guys.
All right. Let's see. Fautano had one, but that was declined. Frazier had two holding calls, looks like. Spencer Anderson had one. Broderick Jones had one. Fautano had an accepted one in week 10. You just talking offensive lineman?
Yeah, how many did Pete have? That's the one I'm missing.
One.
One. So the offensive line, in terms of accepted holding calls, had 6 the entire season. How many did the defensive backs have? And again, this is offensive holding, not defensive holding, but offensive holding. You said Samuel, Eccles.
Eccles had one. You want me to count Sermon or no?
No, just defensive backs.
Okay. Castro one. Asante Samuel one, and Jabril Peppers one.
So your defensive backs had 4. They had 2 fewer offensive holding calls than your offensive line did, which is an incredible stat for this offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So really, really impressive there. And if you factor in all the holding calls by the other players, Sermon, et cetera, I'm sure they exceeded greatly. You guys had 15 holding calls in total, so the other guys had 9. Pittsburgh's offensive line had 6. So again, that can be a little subjective, but still, over the course of an entire season, really remarkable. Yes, I know Rodgers got the ball out quickly, and that can help to some degree, but Tua had almost identical snap to throw time. Dolphins had double the offensive line penalties, more than double. They had 27. So it's not the say-all end-all. The run game is a factor as well. This is not just on pass plays, but all offensive plays. So really impressive job by this young group, and another reason to be excited about this young offensive line.
6 false starts by offensive linemen out of 12 the team had.
Yeah, so half of them came from the tight ends and the receivers and other offensive positions. So again, really incredible there, especially dealing with Rodgers that, has a cadence that can sometimes make you false start because you're just, it is such a deep and heavy cadence that it can sometimes work against you.
All right. Good stuff.
All right, Dave, let's get to my first Pittsburgh Steelers 2026 mock draft that went up on Tuesday, the first one of the year, but certainly not the last. And a little different approach to it in terms of the first round. A lot of people have quarterback and a bunch of people have wide receiver, and valid reasons for that. But I went cornerback, CB, with Avion Terrell out of Clemson. If Pittsburgh does not re-sign James Pierre or Asante Samuel, even if they bring back somebody like Samuel, big hole at corner opposite Joey Porter Jr. Terrell is an athletic, talented, easy-moving cover corner, but he's gotten some big splash plays that you may not expect from a corner, especially one listed at 180 pounds. He's got 8 forced fumbles. He had 5 last year, a bunch of tackles for loss, sacks, so made a bunch of plays all around the line of scrimmage too. Probably got to work on tackling a little bit, but the mentality is there. So when you're in an AFC North, where you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Pittsburgh tried to address that last year with Ramsey. That was kind of the goal and intent. Even with the new coaching staff, that mission does not change. How do you combat and compete in your division? How do you, deal with Chase and Higgins? You get Terrell out of Clemson.
All right. What is his superpower?
I mean, he's just a good cover corner. He's athletic. He's fluid. He's got really loose hips. There's no tightness in his turn. And he's got 8 forced fumbles, which good luck finding that in another cornerback.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how do we have an arm length on him yet?
No, we don't.
He's
probably, his size is his build's just average. It's not nothing great, but I don't want to get so. And this is not you making the point, but I had some readers made the point that he's too small. I want a big corner. Yeah, you maybe ideally want a big corner, but you want a good corner, somebody who can cover. And we'll see what his weight is. I'm not sure if he's actually a $180. That's a listed weight, so we'll see. And I know that new coaching staff, but bloodlines here in Pittsburgh has always loved their bloodlines, especially in the first round. His older brother AJ Terrell is a star corner for the Falcons.
All right, good point there. All right, I understand the direction there, and I certainly understand your round 2 pick.
And that is Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. I got the immediate response, so he won't be there. I think it's hard to say that in February. He's viewed as a second-round guy. Mock draft database has his average rank in terms of where he's been mocked to, 44th overall, so 53rd. It's not a big stretch. Got a bunch of receivers may push a guy like Cooper Jr. down, but a strong route runner, great after the catch, plays inside, outside, improved throughout his career. The Adam Henry connection from their time together at Indiana all makes sense, Dave.
It certainly does with him, man. Be interesting to hear how the buzz increases on him once the combine gets underway. This is definitely a wide receiver that the Steelers are going to have interest in during the pre-draft process. As we noted in previous podcasts, he predominantly played in the slot last year, but the year before that, he was predominantly an outside guy. So this is an outside-inside guy. I think you could stand to see him do a little bit better job on contested catches, but he's good after the catch. He's a good route runner overall. I'm not going to be the guy that says he won't be there, but I kind of imagine as this thing moves forward closer to the draft, I could see him getting into the first round, and I could legitimately see the Steelers having their eye on him in the first round at 21st overall.
Yeah, I think those things are possible. I think we just take it for where things are at today. And obviously, we're going to learn a lot more about Pittsburgh's needs and who they're interested in. These mocks are always made from the view of what they will do, not necessarily what I personally want them to do. But the first one's always pretty hard to really know what they're going to do with so much ahead of us. And of course, I'm a big Cooper fan, so it kind of works hand in hand. I really want Pittsburgh to draft this guy. I don't think he'll run great at the combine. I think if there's one knock on Omar Cooper Jr., it's going to be that time speed, that long speed. He's probably a 4.5 kind of a guy. He's not a burner, but really fast on tape, plays to that speed and gets open and like an open receiver best of all. So I don't know if his stock will fly up at the combine because he's not going to run. I don't think he'll run that 4.38 that just knocks everyone's socks off. That other guys I'm sure will post, but just in terms of a good tape receiver, that's Omar Cooper Jr.
Have the wide receivers been doing the 3-cone and short shuttle?
Well, no one does the long drill anymore.
Right.
I'm sure, like other positions, a smattering of guys will do the short shuttle, the 20-yard shuttle, but usually those are later round guys just trying to get as much information out there as possible.
All right. Definitely a guy you and I have kind of pegged right out of the chute when it comes to a potential wide receiver. So I certainly understand that. Look, I mean, that's the kind of guy, too. If he fell out of the first round, maybe you go up and go get the second round.
Yeah, depending on cost, but that's a guy that I certainly will have an eye on throughout this pre-draft process. Probably means he goes to Baltimore because every guy that you and I like goes to Baltimore. All right, Dave, round 3, I got Zach Wheatley, the safety out of Penn State, and this could be a riser in the process. It's a good safety class, and so could this guy go higher whenever April's draft comes around in Pittsburgh? Absolutely, but seems to be his projection right now. He's got good size, athletic, plays clean, can play free and strong safety, mostly free at Penn State. So you're looking for safety depth at least, eye towards the future, 2027 starter, maybe even sooner if Ramsey is cut.
All right. What would you call his superpower?
Let me check out the report on him, which I did not personally write. Our Jim Hester wrote that. He had one interesting stat that I want to try to find somewhere in here. 0 penalties in 5 years I thought was interesting, especially with the targeting and how kind of often those get called at the college level. Just a really well-rounded guy, seems to be the report, but good athleticism, good size, just seems to be good across the board.
So, probably going to be one of the older players in this draft class too, right?
He'll be 24 to start the year, which is on the older side, but it's not, as a senior, it's not unusually so. An experienced guy's played almost 2,500 career snaps, 1,200 plus at free safety, played on special teams, so graded out pretty well. You get an experienced guy.
Played a lot of special teams, I think, too, didn't he?
Yeah, 446 in his career per our scouting report. Some of those were field goal block, but he's pretty well versed on special teams.
All right, I like it. All right. You put a quarterback in this mock draft.
I did. It's Garrett Nussmeier from LSU with my second of 3 third-round picks. It's tricky to project. It's hard to see Pittsburgh if they hypothetically kept all 12 picks. I'm not predicting trades in this mock and probably won't for my future ones. I have not done so before because that gets even messier. But again, just the connections in terms of what I think Pittsburgh will do. His father, Doug Nussmeier, coached with Mike McCarthy in Dallas a couple of years ago. He has the son of a coach and son of a former player. Doug played in the NFL for several seasons. Nussmeier had some good 2024 tape, had a core muscle injury in 2025. His play really went down the tubes from there. So I think Pittsburgh, that sweet spot with those 3 third-round picks, probably where you look for a quarterback.
Uh, Not a big fan in the middle of the draft like that, especially. But I mean, look, if you drafted this kid in the third round too, that puts the end to Mason Rudolph, especially if Aaron Rodgers comes back, right?
In all likelihood, but you never know. Heck, Will Howard broke his hand in the summer and he goes on IR, and that opens up a spot for Skylar Thompson. So you never know exactly how things go. You'd like to say these things have a funny way of working themselves out. Obviously, Rudolph would probably be feeling the squeeze the most because you wouldn't expect Howard to get cut and you would not be cutting Garrett Nussmeier, but you let those things kind of solve themselves in training camp.
There's a good chance Nussmeier ends up being the third or fourth quarterback drafted this year, right?
Yeah, it seems
When you
so.
look at this class.
Especially, and not to, you don't want to make too much out of it, but he had a good Senior Bowl week. And if the issue was health during the season, and you always wonder when a guy says he wasn't healthy that year or whenever he had bad tape, was he really, because everyone's playing hurt. And so was that truly the issue, or was it kind of more of an excuse or just a way to mitigate some bad tape out there? But he was healthy at the Senior Bowl. Ross McCorkle made the comment he got better each day in practice, was named the game's MVP. So maybe the injury was legitimate to the point where it really impacted. Of course, you have a core muscle injury. It's hard to rotate. It's hard to really get your arm into it. And really kind of because you're throwing kind of ground up, getting your hips into it and rotating all that kind of stuff. So maybe that was a real legitimate factor of why he struggled so much at LSU in 2025.
All right. I've looked at some average depth of target and average depth of completion numbers for a lot of these guys as early study on them. Fernando Mendoza, just as point of a reference, according to Sports Info Solutions, had an average depth of completion distance of 7.3 yards. That's quite healthy, and his average depth of overall target was 9.1. Nussmeier, of the at least 7 players that they have early kind of reports and advanced statistics on, is last of the 7. His average depth of target was 6.6 yards, and his average depth of completion was 3.9 yards.
I'm sorry, this is for 2025, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder what it'll be for 24 if you're able to look at that now or sometime later. Because 25, the stats are going to be bad. They're
Right.
bad across the board. There's no question. He struggled mightily, and he got benched for it by year's end.
Let me see if I have at a push of a button
I mean,
here.
just like you look at that. I mean, the reason if you're looking at Nussmeier, it's not about what he did in 25. It's about what he did in 24. And the thought being, if he's healthy and if the injury was the issue in 25, he gets back to that 24 magic, then is that the player that you're going to get at the NFL level? I still think in 24 his tape was good, but not great. Recently he went back to school. I know he wanted to win a championship there. That was a big reason. But if he was a first-round slam dunk pick, he would have probably come out. So I thought in 24 he had some third-round kind of tape. That's why I kind of view him as a third-round guy right now. But you're drafting him, if you do, because of what he did in 24, not for what he didn't do in 25.
All right. 2024, according to SIS, great site, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I have subscribed to them for quite a while. They've got a free big board up on there, so I want to shout them out, even though we have to pay for a lot what we get from them. Great site. But then in 2024, they have an average depth of target for him 2 yards higher than his 2025 number. So it was 8.6 in 2024 versus 6.6 in 2025. His average depth of completion, we said, was 3.9 last year. In 2024, it was 5.8.
Yeah, so you're seeing about a 2-yard difference in both those categories, which again speaks to his play being just a whole lot better in 24.
Right. Still would like that number a little higher, but point taken about his 2024 tape and the injury that he dealt with in 2025. Okay. That was your first of 2 third-round picks, right?
The second of 3 third-round picks.
Oh, the second, I'm sorry, second of 3 third-round picks.
With the final third-round selection, I have it's a fun name here, Dante Corleone, a big nose tackle out of Cincinnati. I think Pittsburgh looking for that, at the very least, backup run-stuffing nose tackle, kind of missing that. Pittsburgh was looking for that after Quality went down last year, could not find it. We'll see how the team feels about Y.A. Black. If it's easy an end, is he going to go to nose tackle? We'll see exactly how they view him, this new coaching staff. But Corleone had a down 2025 year, kind of like Nussmeier. I think he got hurt. I think there was some maybe even blood clot issues with him. There was something going on with him. Weight's going to be an issue. Can he keep his weight down? He did not weigh in at the Shrine Bowl, but had some good tape in 2024.
All right, you're not hurt my feelings by addressing the defensive line there, and specifically somebody that could work his way into some snaps in the middle of that defensive line. So I certainly understand why you went that way. Was there anybody else you were considering in that spot? Maybe as a defensive lineman.
I'd have to think. I don't remember exactly. I didn't do another's considered just because there were so many names to sift through for this first one. I probably will for later ones, but no one else was really coming to mind in terms of what I was doing whenever I was making that mock draft.
All right, your round 4 pick, I really like, and I've only seen cut up highlights for him, but what I've seen are very impressive, and that would be Reed Adams, the guard out of Texas A&M.
Yeah, that is the first name pronunciation still working on. It is what
Armage.
Armarsh, Reed Adams out of A&M, and our Josh Carney wrote up the report on that as a real powerful run blocker. He's got good size, at least at 6'5", 317. And yeah, just kind of talked about the aggressiveness Josh did, and that seems to fit well for Pittsburgh.
All right, and he's got some versatility at the college level at both guard spots too, right?
Yeah, he's primarily played right guard, but he played left guard earlier in his A&M career, and that's likely you'd be drafting him to compete with Spencer Anderson. That's kind of the way I'm kind of had that in my head. Say Malu leaves, you have Anderson, you have Reed Adams, and those guys probably duke it out for that left guard spot. And again, you go back to James Campen, who's got the history of developing that mid-round offensive lineman, a bunch of guys on his resume in Green Bay who fit that bill. So I think mid-round offensive lineman is a real good fit for Pittsburgh.
I like that. I like that right there as well too. I do wonder if as I get deeper into the tape, if I might deem him more of a third round guy. But I like the player and I like addressing the position.
In round 4, with the second of 2 fourth-round picks, I'm taking Ryan Paglia as our lead draft analyst. He had him in his latest mock draft. I'm taking the same name just a little bit earlier in Caden Wetjen, who's a receiver from Iowa, but really primarily a returner and a prolific one. Kick returns have really become more of a thing given the dynamic kickoff rules and touchbacks going out to the 35. So in 2023, the year before the kickoff rule was instituted, teams averaged 18 total kick returns in a season. Last year, almost 65, and probably a number that will continue to increase. And Wetjen has been insanely productive last 2 years. 4 punt return scores, 2 kick return scores, production you just don't get from anybody else. Pittsburgh's return game in general, has been really abysmal. No kick return touchdowns since 2017. They finished bottom 5 in kick return average. These 2 years under this dynamic kickoff rule, they were last in 2024. They were 28th in 2025. They have their starting running backs returning kicks. Let's get a designated true returner that can make a difference. That's Caden Wetjen.
All right, where did he line up mostly?
I mean, he didn't play a ton of receiver. I think he caught 15 passes or so. I don't know exactly where he lined up, but you're drafting him as a primary returner, and the receiver stuff is kind of an additional thing rather than the other way around.
All right, let me see if
I can try to look here. We don't have the official report on him yet. Looks like last year, if I can pull it up, he played just 226 offensive snaps, 140 out wide, 77 in the slot. The year before, only 80 offensive snaps, 46 out wide, 34 in the slot.
All right, and I think that was one of Dr. Mel's picks, right?
I think that she was a big fan of Wetjen. He got some love during our roundtable podcast. You talk about with the Cowboys, you had Kavontae Turpin out there and what he did for Dallas. I'm sure McCarthy's going to look for similar in Pittsburgh.
All right, so that's your double dip at the wide receiver spot there. All right, round 5. Tell me about Red Murdoch out of Buffalo.
Yeah, inside linebacker for Buffalo and now to Pittsburgh in this mock draft. Some depth there. We'll see what happens to Queen, Malik Harrison, Cole Holcomb, but you could certainly look for depth. You could look for inside linebacker earlier. If Queen obviously were to be cut, you're going to address his position earlier than the 5th round. But Murdoch had a really strong career. He's got some size, 17 forced fumbles, broke the NCAA record for most forced fumbles in a career that was held by fellow Buffalo player Khalil Mack. 142 tackles last year, 5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles last year alone. So some depth and a guy that can make splash plays.
All right. I imagine a pretty good special teamers too, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much he did it, considering he was the guy defensively, maybe earlier in his college career. I didn't dig to that level, but obviously would be expected to play there out of the gate as a rookie.
Looks like between regular and postseason, he played 87 special team snaps last year. In 2024. He played 152 special team snaps. In 2023, he played, 74 special team snaps.
All right, so some background. I don't know if what units those are on, if he was field goal block and other types of stuff, but would ask to be on those units in Pittsburgh, obviously. And I'm sure could do so. Look at Jack Sawyer, who didn't play any special teams at Ohio State. He had a strong year, so these guys can make that transition.
All right, I need to watch tape on him. I haven't watched anything on. I know the name because it's a unique name in Red Murdoch, and also you don't see too many Buffalo products overall. But yeah, I'll have to watch him. I definitely understand the pick, especially if out goes Malik Harrison and you don't re-sign Cole Holcomb, and we'll obviously see what happens with Patrick Queen. But I do think that we'll see this team draft a inside linebacker probably day 3, just right where you have them there.
And with Terrell and Murdoch, you got a bunch of forced fumbles, guys who take the football away. And by the way, for those wondering, his name is actually Khalil. It's Khalil Murdoch, just like Khalil Mack, but he goes by Red.
All right. I really like the next one as being a all-around tight end fan.
Yeah, that's Sam Roush from Stanford, big body, 6'5", 260. He had good, consistent production on some bad Cardinal teams, 49 catches for 545 yards last season. Our Tom Meade liked his tape, and he could be the number 3 tight end, especially if Connor Hayward leaves in free agency.
All right, probably going to be one of the better all-around tight ends, I would guess, in this class, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. Maybe kind of a Jake Ferguson type of vibe in his game or something similar. I don't know, did Tom comp him to somebody? I don't know if he gave an official comp. Luke Stalker was his comp. We've seen Stanford, as Tom points out, produce a lot of quality tight ends. Dalton Schultz, who McCarthy coached in Dallas, and Colby Parkinson and Zach Ertz. So there's a little lineage there, even though that only means so much for what Roush's prospects will be. But Tom liked him, gave him a solid grade, and so he was my pick.
All right. I could definitely see that happening, especially if we'll see. I mean, even once again, we talked about some of these unrestricted guys that obviously aren't going to be top 150. Guy like Connor Hayward, and we expect this team to move on from Jonnu Smith. And yeah, I mean, I could certainly see this team addressing the tight end position in day 3, and why not Roush?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense there. And then with my other 6th-round pick, I went running back with Roman Hemby out of Indiana. He actually earned a comp to Kenneth Gainwell in the scouting report that I wrote on Hemby. He's got really good pass-catching chops. Did less so of that at Indiana, but really showed it at Maryland, where he played for 4 or so seasons before transferring to the Hoosiers, where he was their lead back for the champion undefeated Indiana squad. Kind of a one-cut runner. I don't know if I love the running tape, and pass pro's an issue for Hemby. It's a big problem of his game, but the pass catching chops are there, and so it's kind of a Gainwell equivalent, more quick than fast. Pass pro's not great, but as a receiver, really natural and fluid.
Oh, I mean, you got we'll see. Obviously, what happens with Gain. Are you? Are, do you think they would go running back in this draft if they did re-sign Gainwell?
Probably not. You got three. I mean, depends. Caleb Johnson's such a wild card. How does the coaching staff feel about him? They can kind of cut both ways. It might be good to get a new coaching staff in there, a refresh, a clean slate after a tough rookie year. But of course, there is no attachment to him from the coaching staff perspective. So, not really sure exactly how to make the new coaching staff if that's good or bad for Caleb Johnson. But could you draft one late? You're talking sixth, seventh round. Even if
All
you
right.
re-sign Kenneth Gainwell, they don't make the 53 to land on the practice squad. Not the end of the world with all these picks. So I mean, it's possible. You look at the board. I think day three, look at the board, see what the talent is, and just try to get some good players. If you're drafting for need at that point, you're probably doing some stuff wrong. So even if Gainwell was re-signed, then Hemby, I think, still makes some sense. And of course, if Gainwell goes elsewhere, then there'll be a big need there.
All right. What would be you can't have a Steelers mock draft without having some Steeler bloodlines attached to it, right?
Yeah, even with a new coaching staff, you got to mix in some Steeler bloodlines there. I'm going Max Tomczak, the receiver out of Youngstown State, with the first of my two seventh-round picks. He is the nephew of Mike Tomczak, the former Steelers quarterback. Mike is an assistant coach at Youngstown State, too. And so it's not just for the name, though. He's got a little bit of size, about 6 foot, listed 200 pounds, and had a really strong career for the Penguins. He had a 1,000-yard season, his first for Youngstown State in 2025, I think 70 or so catches, and had, I think, 70 for 800-plus yards the year before. So he was considered one of the better FCS prospects, and, of course, the ties to Pittsburgh helps as well.
All right. He was he a Shrine Bowl guy?
I don't think so. I don't think, because I think we would have had an interview with him. I don't know if he played in a All-Star game, if he was, I don't know, whatever, the Hula Bowl or whatever's even out there these days, but I don't think he was a Shrine Bowl kid.
Okay. All right. I obviously haven't watched anything on him, but I'll add that to the list. All right. You double dipped at defensive line in this one, and on the heels of triple dipping. Is triple dipping a word?
Yeah.
Triple dipping at the wide receiver position, and I realize the wet gin kid is more of a returner than anything else.
Right.
But all right, tell me about Emarion Banks out of Texas Tech.
Yeah, defensive lineman, and you just talk about who's kind of checking those boxes from the height and weight standpoint, and kind of harder to find those guys, especially I think in this year's class. And he's listed 6'5", 300 pounds. And so it's a developmental guy, seventh rounder, gotten very little buzz, not going to the combine. His production was just okay. He had 3 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks in 2025. But the connection to new outside linebackers coach CJ Ayu maybe helps a little bit. I know Ayu will not be coaching technically Banks, but there's overlap between defensive end and edge guys in terms of how they practice and play and going through drills and things like that. So obviously it's not going to be the guy that's going to replace Cam Hayward, but Emarion Banks the pick to round things out.
All right. Wonder what his arm size is going to come in at. I think probably going to come in around 6'4" and 5'8", 300 pounds. And he's not a combine invite.
No, not invited to the combine, so we'll have to wait for his pro day for measurements on Banks.
All right. Okay. All right. I mean, I definitely understand directionally how you went here, and obviously you took all picks. You did not predict any trades and all like that. Do you think at some point in your next one or two mocks that you might predict some trades?
Probably not. I mean, I may. I just don't know how I would go about that. How do you predict a trade? Where do you predict it? How favorable do you want to make the trade in Pittsburgh's corner? So I've never done that before in my mocks. Even the year I was convinced they were going to trade up for Devin Bush, I didn't predict that in my mock because I just didn't, you just never know what a draft day trade looks like. So do I think they're actually going to make 12 draft picks? No, I think 10 is about the number I've been kind of putting at, so you're going to have 2 picks traded away, and how that trade happens could be a million different possibilities, but I doubt I'll do any trades. Also, with more picks, there's more chances for me to be right, and so I'll play that game as well.
Speaking of which, name me the 2 on this list that you, at this point of the offseason, you really, really think have a good chance of being Steeler selections.
I mean, it's still so early. I mean, Cooper Jr., even though he might be in that gray area, is he going to get there in the mid-second round? Is he worth taking at 21? That may be an ultimate discussion and dilemma that we have, quote unquote. The other guy, I think Wetchen makes a lot of sense. I'm sure other teams will have interest too, just for Pittsburgh needing some sort of shot in the arm, some sort of jolt with their return game. Nussmeier has some connection. So I'll just say Cooper and Nussmeier as the easy dots to connect.
I will go Cooper and Reed Adams, even though I think Reed Adams might get into the third round talk potentially. But I of these guys from this far out, I could really see those two being Steelers.
Anything on Reed Adams of why he was the second guy? I know we have to kind of dig into him a little bit more, but just the run blocking.
Just a run blocking from the Twitter cut ups that I've seen.
Okay. All right. We will see. My next mock, I don't know when that'll come out. Post combine, probably post free agency after the dust settles that first week. We kind of know the pieces in place. So probably be a hot minute for my next mock. Are you still going to be just one mock, Dave? The
Just
last
one, because
right.
my next to last one is usually the best one, so I'll save my next to the last one is last.
There
I
you
don't know.
go.
We'll see how time permits and all like that. 200 comments on this post. What was the biggest pushback other than Omar Cooper won't be there in the second round?
Yeah, that was a pretty common one, mostly on Nussmeier. Is it worth taking a quarterback? And if so, is Nussmeier the right guy? Was a lot of the commentary, which is a fair point.
Mm-hmm. Any other kind of I try to stay out of comments these days. Anything else
Yeah,
kind of pushback?
obviously in the first round with Terrell, people wondering, is corner worth it? And then is he big enough? A lot of people were taking issue with the size and selection of Terrell.
All right. I like it. Good job.
All right, thank you. All right, Dave, anything else for us to get to today? Oh, we should mention, probably should have put this in the earlier section. Pittsburgh will not be playing in Mexico City in 2026. The 49ers officially are hosting that game, which we kind of suspected they would be the host team. And because the Steelers do not play the 49ers this year, they will not be going to Mexico City. I still think 2027, a good chance of that happening for Pittsburgh hosting.
I agree. And oh boy, the 49ers are going to be putting some air mileage on, aren't they?
Yeah, right. They're playing. They're going to Melbourne, right? They're not hosting that game. The Rams, I think, are, but they're going to have to make that crazy long flight to Melbourne to open up the season. Correct?
I believe so, and they also have a couple other long trips, just in the States too. I think. Don't they have to go to Florida or something?
I don't know. Are they playing the AFC East or something
I
this
haven't
year?
looked. I just saw a tidbit or something on Twitter this morning after that news got announced about the international game, and it sounds like they're getting prepared to play or have a lot of miles in the air in 2026.
And I believe there's some rumors that Melbourne game could be on a Wednesday. It might get a Wednesday debut. Remember, there's that obscure rule that the NFL can't play on, at least it was Fridays. I don't know if it applies to Wednesdays, but they couldn't play games on Fridays after like some date in early September because of, I guess, of a conflict with high school football or something like that. So the NFL trying to pick its different days to play, you might get the rare Wednesday game.
All right, shall we get to some listener emails here?
Yep, let's do that and close out today's show.
All right, LV has bumped this up a couple of times that we haven't hit to it, so I'm going to hit him first. Hello, Dave and Alex. Best sport duo, always keeping me informed and entertained. All right, thank you for that. LV says, both you mentioned that your personalities don't really like change, he says, which is similar to me. So all the Steelers' changes in the last several years have been interesting. Obviously, the coaching change was huge, but other changes have been shocking. For example, the Steelers never did stuff that the media speculated, like signing this guy or signing that guy. So I remember when they thought that the Steelers would sign Justin Fields, and I said, no way. Then same thing with DK trade, and then Aaron, he says it was easier to predict their moves during the season, the draft and free agency, but it seems like this is going to be very tricky now, especially with a whole new staff. He says, I know it's been exciting, but how have you guys adjusted to covering and analyzing this newly bold Steelers? He says, what has been your most surprising move in the last 4 to 5 years? All right, I'll answer that last question first. And look, I don't have everything laid out in front of me, but the trading for not only the trading for DK Metcalf, but then turning around and making him, which at the time was either the number 2 or I think it was the number 3 highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, to me was really surprising to see that team do. Now, was it understandable because of the whole George Pickens thing? Yeah, but even so, for them to not only trade for a guy like DK Metcalf, but then to bring an outsider in and make him the third, I think it was the third highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. That was a super surprising move in totality, especially when you consider the trading for and the contract. So that's the first thing that jumps in my head as far as the most surprising move goes.
That was mine as well. That one really kinda shocked me. I was at an Applebee's when that news broke, and that was not the place where I wanted to receive that news from. I think it's hard to top that one. It may be a little recency bias, but I think it's certainly still valid on its own merits. I mean, just the quarterback turnover, they turned over the entire quarterback room the last 2 seasons. You went last year, you're thinking, okay, Russ or Fields, more likely Fields comes back, and then, okay, both are gone, and now here's Aaron Rodgers. That was a kind of surprising twist to that quarterback saga after Omar Khan and Art Rooney said, yeah, we want to bring these guys back. We want to bring Russ or Fields back. And obviously neither occurred there, but just the quarterback turnover, turning over that room entirely in back-to-back years is was really unprecedented in Pittsburgh.
All right. The other question here he has, I know it's been exciting, but how have you guys adjusted to covering and analyzing this newly bold Steelers? I don't know if we really have had to. I mean, sure, we just mentioned the whole DK Metcalf thing, and then you had obviously the trades last year, the Ramsey, and I mean, that was a little bit surprising that, sent Minka. I mean, did we go into last offseason thinking Minka would be traded? And
Yeah, no, that's I mean,
you know,
the Ramsey, because remember, we heard the Ramsey trade to Pittsburgh first, and like that was surprising but not shocking. Like there have been some rumors about that, kind of some buzz, and then we were kind of like, what are they trading? What was Miami getting? We've not heard. We took like 20 minutes plus to hear
mhm.
the compensation. We're like, who are they getting a draft pick? Like what's going on here? And then it was Minka, and that was a real shocking moment for me.
Yeah, I agree. Now, as far as how we covered them kind of pre-draft and free agency, I guess, as a whole. LV, this will be a good question to ask exactly 1 year from now.
Hmm.
You know, with McCarthy and as head coach and coming off of seeing them do some of the things that they did last offseason, as we just mentioned with the Metcalf thing, with the Minka and the Ramsey and Johnny Smith thing. Is that kind of a you know, uh, will we look back as that being kind of a one-off type situation? I once again, I'm not expecting this team to be heavily involved in free agency this year. I mean, obviously there's going to be one or two guys, but I don't think I'll be surprised if we'll see anywhere close to going out and trading for a guy like Metcalf and turn around and giving a big contract. I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to this offseason is the pre-draft process and the actual draft, and if there's any real kind of notable changes there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all been new and it's been exciting. It's been different, which has kind of been fun. It's been a lot busier too, but we'll take it. But because the actual roster construction part hasn't started yet, you haven't been super surprised because there's not been a whole lot to do in terms of players. Obviously, the coaching staff has been the first thing that's been put together, which is not surprising because a lot of McCarthy's buddies. And by the way, I think I mentioned whenever the hire was made, I'm writing an article. The article's done for the morning on Danny Crossman. I thought there was no connection between Crossman and
Mm,
McCarthy. They never coached at the NFL together. They spent 1 year together at Pitt when Crossman was a player and McCarthy was a GA. So you have one kind of way back connection that ties Mike McCarthy and special teams coordinator Danny Crossman. But until the roster construction starts, it's going to be hard to really address that. I'm sure there'll be a lot that surprises us, and our kind of quote unquote blues, clues, and rules are going to likely change, and we'll have to adjust. And our predicting power may not be as strong as it was. But until those draft picks get made, those free agent signings occur, you get a feel for this offense, the philosophy, the scheme on both sides of the ball. there's not been a lot that has surprised us yet, even though it has been a lot different.
Exactly. Make a note, LV, to ask us a year from now what we think. All right, let's go to Craig Sampson. He says, guys, the usually boring Steelers have been in the news all year. Number one, he says, do you think there are any true blue chip prospects in this class? He says, if not, we should trade down from one for one or two next year. We really need high picks for 2027. A bunch of third and fourth is peanuts. I mean, look, we'll obviously see this is just normally a team that doesn't. If they do any trading as far as draft goes, you normally see this team going up as opposed to down. So, I mean, look, it's hard to look not only ahead to this year's draft as we sit here in the middle of February, but 2027. I mean, I get the overall thought that need to start stockpiling picks for 2027. Do I think this team? I guess that what he's asking is, do we think that this team maybe will trade down from 21 to get maybe a one or a two next year? As I sit here right now, I think the easy and most obvious answer would, or highly probable, would be no. But we'll see how that pans out. Are there any true blue chip prospects in this class? Yeah, I mean, with every class, I think there's blue chip guys, but I do think that once you get out of the first round, it kind of drops off a fair amount, at least from my 30,000-foot view as far as top first round picks. I mean, what was some of the early speculation of how many true first rounders there is in this class?
Yeah, some estimates, and obviously it's subjective, but have been at like 15. I think Matt Miller had 15, and normally there's 20, low 20s in terms of first round grades. We'll see what all gets adjusted throughout the pre-draft process. It's not considered a real top-heavy class. You don't have as many of those blue chip kind of guys. Now, are there some? Is Mendoza considered blue chip? Yeah, probably still considered blue chip. That's probably fair assessment. What level of blue chip and how does he relate to other quarterbacks first overall? We've had the discussion before. Caleb Downs, probably blue chip. April Reese. Some
Love.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love, even from a talent standpoint, agreed. Positional value is going to be the thing that may knock him, but from a talent standpoint, yeah, blue chip. I had this kind of report on Francis Marinoa from Miami, who I think is a blue chip guy. I was really, really impressed by his game. So there are some, but probably fewer than usual. Receivers, it's probably not. I would not say there's a blue chip receiver prospect this year. Is that fair to say? There's some good
I
ones.
like Tate.
I do too, but do you call him blue chip?
No, probably not from what I know about him so far. Ask me in another month, I guess.
Yeah. I just wrote the report on him. It went up today. I like him a good bit, but I don't call him blue chip in terms of some other past guys in past classes.
All right, number two, he has, please explain why this year's quarterback class is suddenly deemed bad. It's the same players that analysts discussed last year without Manning. People raved about Klubnik, Sellers, and other quarterbacks, and now it's the worst. Now it's the worst quarterback draft class. Question mark. Did they have a bad year? Is it fair to call them bad after 1 year? A bit confused about this rating system. Look, I mean, Craig, you roll back these last couple of, at least, and it maybe even further than that, but just as far as quick recollection goes, I mean, how many of the last couple of years have we heard a year out? Oh man, this next quarterback class, and we even addressed this once again. I sound like a broken record before this last season got underway. Oh, can't wait! All these names, and how are we going to be able to set the recorder to make sure you get all these names? And then obviously you got guys like Moore going back, you got Sellers going back, you got Chambliss going back, and nobody really even knew who Chambliss wasn't even in the talk. Yeah, there was the talk about Manning and look, Nussmeier and Klubnik, and I mean, very few people were talking about Mendoza coming over from Cal. It's just a part of having to watch the college seasons play out. So I just think I think every year, specifically with the quarterback class, people get out over their skis, and be interesting to see. I mean, when you look ahead to 2027 class right now, yeah, it looks like it's going to be absolutely fantastic as we sit here on paper. But what a difference one college season can make, and that's what happened to this year's draft class. I mean, it's Fernando Mendoza, and then I think by almost default it's Ty Simpson number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then almost by default, it feels like it's Nussmeier number 3, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, that's probably where this thing stands right now. And to answer the question, what changed? It's why they play the games. It's why you had the entire 2025 college football season. And a lot of those guys struggled. Nussmeier struggled, Klubnik struggled, Aller struggled, and then got hurt. It's how this thing goes. You got to look at the season and what have you done for me lately and your past performance. And those guys all underwhelmed expectations pretty objectively. So that's why they play the games.
All right. Now, obviously, right now on paper, the 2027 class looks fantastic right now, right?
Yeah, on paper, and we'll see if it looks that way. I'm sure, like every other year, there'll be a couple names that we think are blue chip prospects who struggle and don't have that shine on them come next year's draft. There'll be some that we're not talking about right now that emerge and become potential first round, if not slam dunk first round names next year.
And I learned just this morning that the Arizona State quarterback is going to LSU, right? So what's that going to do to him?
Yeah, Sam Levitt, he transferred, and yeah, he'll be a name that we're not talking a lot about, but is in that mix next year. And if he has a great year, then he could certainly, under Lane Kiffin, go out there and be a first round pick next year.
All right. The third part is Broderick Jones's injury career threatening. He says, I thought I saw something about that because it's the neck. I think there's a lot of speculation within that. I don't know what guys like Jerry Dulac and all have had to say. Yeah, look, I will say this. It's concerning, especially the way the injury kind of happened. When it happened, you just thought, oh, okay, maybe a stinger or something. Maybe he'll come back. But not only did he not come back, he went on IR and then he had the surgery, right?
Did they confirm he had surgery, or was that Dulac? I think Dulac said that, right? Which I trust. I'm just trying to think where that came from.
I'm trying to remember too what they even said about Broderick.
I think it was Dulac. Tomlin never said much. He called him week to week, and that's all he really ever said about that. We don't know the extent of it. I know that right after that he was on the sideline. He was moving around fine. Now standing on a sideline is a lot different than playing a football game, obviously. So it was not so severe that he was in a neck brace 24/7 and couldn't walk around and be on an NFL sideline, where in theory he could be hit and risk further injury, hypothetically. So maybe that's one small positive sign, but we just don't know many details about it. So certainly something that hopefully Omar Khan addresses at the Combine Tuesday.
Right. Now, I'm not ready to say it's career threatening by any stretch of the imagination, but we just don't know much about it. And yeah, that's an important thing with the Combine coming up is one of our guys or somebody else there. That's one question that I think Omar Khan needs to be asked. What is the status of Broderick Jones coming off of this neck injury? So
now, what kind of answer will you get? I don't
right.
know how good the answer will be. Omar does not typically shed a lot of light.
All right, Craig. So stay tuned for this next month and specifically at the Combine. Maybe we'll learn more about Broderick Jones there. Let's take one from Chris Lookhart here. Good morning, fellas. I've sent this twice before this, and I'm curious of your thoughts, so I'm sending it again. I've been thinking about this for a few days now. I thought I would ask you, what are the differences in Will Howard and Fernando Mendoza that make Mendoza a first overall pick and Howard a sixth-round pick? They both won a national championship. They both show amazing leadership skills and intelligence, and they both are stereotypical quarterback size. Howard doesn't seem to possess an arm with an extreme amount of zip, but Mendoza doesn't either, he says. And both of them can run a little bit, but neither one is a scrambler like Lamar Jackson. So my question is what makes Mendoza so much greater than Howard that he is a first overall pick? All right. How would you, from what you know right now and remember about Howard? For starters, I did go back and cheat and look. I mean, how many quarterbacks did we see drafted last year? What was it, 13 or 14?
If you look, you tell me, but I don't know the number.
All right, it was up there. I think it was more than a dozen round in there. And, how many teams needed a quarterback? how many people saw Shadur Sanders and going where he went? How many people saw Dylan Gabriel going where he went? Uh, as far as specific differences, I think Mendoza has a better arm than Will Howard. I think Mendoza more accurate down the field. I think Mendoza, man, some of the ball placement on back shoulders was just fantastic. I think Mendoza, uh, just QB smartness wise, comes out of college as a more refined player overall. I get where he's going with this overall, and I haven't, like I watched a lot of Mendoza this past year. I have not gone deep down into his tape, and I probably won't for the sheer fact that it just, you know, spinning my wheels because he's not going to be a Steeler there. But Howard, look, I mean, Alex and I had Howard as a third or fourth round guy, and I was pretty shocked overall that Howard was still on the board sixth round.
Same. I think Will Howard was shocked he was on the board in the sixth round, too. I've not done the official report on Mendoza. Nobody has so far. We will at some point. I don't know if I'll be grabbing that or if somebody else will be writing it up. So I've not. I studied Howard. I wrote the report on him last year, so I had a more critical eye from a draft standpoint. I think you're right. I think, yeah, neither arm is a howitzer. I think Mendoza is probably better, especially on the short intermediate throws. I think the big issue with Howard I had was his deep ball was good to place with. I thought he threw a really pretty deep ball, really accurate, really catchable ball, but he couldn't drive the ball super effectively. Short, intermediate routes, some of those throws, tight window throws over the middle was kind of his bugaboo. The RPMs weren't there over the middle. I think the accuracy, I think you're right, Mendoza's better. Maybe the processing, I think Howard had a little bit of issue there. Mendoza had a couple blips too, but I think Mendoza probably better processor, seer of the field, and so you add those things together, you get the difference there. Now, is it truly first overall pick versus sixth round? Is there that big of a difference between those two guys? Probably not. We graded Howard a lot higher than a sixth round pick, so I think the gap that exists between the two is probably appropriate from where Mendoza will be taken and our personal grade on Howard last year.
I would agree. All right, Jason Chadwell. This says foo for Alex. FOO. What does foo stand for?
I don't know. Is there more context? If there's like the,
Yeah,
the Money
yeah,
Guy show thing that I was
yeah,
referencing, is that what he's
yeah,
talking?
yeah, yeah,
Financial
yeah.
order of operations? Yeah.
Okay. He says, A, do you think Mike Tomlin was just tired of not having a franchise quarterback and saw the writing on the wall for the next few seasons? That's the first part of the question. I mean, Mike Tomlin's done this thing for a long time. I mean, for starters, do I think he just saw the writing on the? Do I think his views on the team and the franchise quarterback situation played a large part in his decision? At its core, I want to say no.
I don't think it did. I mean, again, we don't know exactly what's in his head and heart, but I don't think he left Pittsburgh because it was too hard. Tomlin's never been a guy that leaves a job because it's too difficult or too daunting. I think he was frustrated by this team unable to find traction and him unable to propel it forward, and maybe somebody else can do that job more effectively than him. But I don't think he left because it was you can go find a quarterback at any moment notice, theoretically. So I don't think that was the reason. I just think everything felt pretty stagnant. He'd been coaching for a long time. He was pretty tired. The team felt kind of in a rut, and it was just the right time for him to move on.
All right, Jason wants to know, Alex. Last week you mentioned you listened to a personal finance show, and they always it depends. Is the
Hmm.
money guy with Brian and
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 Bo.
Bo? If it is, what is your favorite step of the FOO?
Oh man, it is the Money Guy show I was referencing. I have not
Okay.
watched as much lately. My favorite step in there, I mean, they don't talk about it a whole lot, and it's not technically part of their steps, but they sometimes reference like step zero always being the giving step, and so they need to probably reference that more than they do. It should be on that chart somewhere. So probably that. I know they have different take than say the Dave Ramsey's of the world, which is pay off debt right away, and their standpoint is pay off the high interest debt early and still make sure you're getting your company match, and I'll do all that kind of stuff first, deductibles covered. So I don't know if I have a favorite step of them all, but it's a good show. They do a good job.
All right. My favorite step is don't owe anybody any money. That's my
Yeah,
favorite step.
that's a good step to have.
All right. Let's see if we can shoehorn one more in here. Jonathan Barton, big fan of the site and podcast. It's my go-to for Steelers coverage. The more I find out about Mike McCarthy, the more I like him. His draft history across two front offices, a clear pattern shows up. He invests heavily in coverage players, builds through the trenches, prioritizes defense early, and consistently finds wide receiver value outside of round one. He says his teams usually end up with sack-driven defenses, opportunistic secondaries, and reliable roster construction. And with another strong wide receiver class in 2026, that trend fits Pittsburgh needs, he says. I'm personally leaning towards Denzel Boston or Mekhi Lemon at wide receiver for our first round pick. In your opinion, which wide receiver is likely to be available at pick 21? Best matches Mike McCarthy's historical tendencies and Steelers' current roster needs. He says, appreciate the work you guys do. And if you're in town for the draft, I manage a hotel in Cranberry, Pennsylvania, about 30 miles away from downtown. I can take care of you with a significant discount there. All right. We appreciate that. How much of the drafting process in Dallas do you think Mike McCarthy had a hand in?
Some. I mean, I know that, obviously Jerry Jones is steering that ship, him and Stephen Jones, more so than McCarthy, but I think there's enough evidence from not just the Dallas time, but Green Bay, obviously, as well, to get a feel. I know Jeremy Pike, I think, is writing up something similar about receiver history of draft picks, what kind of trends we can look at, but obviously he's going to want just talent at receiver when you have the groups they had in Dallas and Green Bay, the much more depth they had at receiver than what Pittsburgh offers currently. So, answer that question, who's going to be there at 21 that matches the historical fits for McCarthy is harder to probably pin down right now. I don't know, Dave. Boston is Dorita's favorite. I'm not a big Denzel Boston fan. I didn't love the tape, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not, from what I've seen of Boston so far, and I see him mocked to the Steelers quite a bit,
Hmm.
so far as well too. Tyson's got, some injury concerns. Carnell Tate, I like. Brazil out of Tennessee is gonna be one of the top ones. Denzel Boston, Mackay. I think there's a good chance that Lemon could potentially maybe be on the board at 21.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. I'll wait for Jeremy to post his article to kind of get a good detail of what those trends are, and then maybe I can better match it to McCarthy. That's my
I'm
plan.
I'm biased at this point right now, though, but I'm really hoping Omar Cooper Jr. shows up in a Steelers uniform, even if I don't know how it happens. Does the stock rise enough where I don't want to say stock rises, but
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
In the media, when we say stock
Right,
rise, we always use it
right.
as a media term, not an NFL term.
Right. I would that's who I'm hoping at this point of the process could be the guy. Skylar Bell out of UConn is a very interesting guy. Surratt out of Indiana, more of a I don't know second to third round guy, I suppose. And then it kind of starts, I believe, dropping off from there. Chris Bell out of Louisville is probably going to be a second or third round guy. Concepcion out of Texas A&M is a guy we're probably going to be talking a lot about as we get through the process here. So, as far as guys that could potentially be on the board, as far as potential need, I could see Boston and Lemon and Cooper potentially being in the wheelhouse right there.
Yeah, that all sounds reasonable to me.
All right, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark here, and we actually have able to shove a lot in this show. We talked about free agent values. We talked about the athletic top 150. We talked Alex's mock draft. We took quite a few listener questions here. You and I will be back on Friday. Who knows? Any idea what we might be talking about this far out?
No idea. Hopefully something comes up to give us some material.
All right. Let us know what you think about Alex's mock draft and everything else we talked about, player values and all. We ran through the long list of free agents the other day on the Monday show. If you want to give some feedback on that as well too. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way, get a username and password, and hit the login button to take advantage of that. So, until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.